Hi all, thank you for joining us today and a warm welcome from Sydney, Australia. My name is Letitia, I'm the Regional Marketing Manager for the Teltonika IoT Group, and I'll be moderating today's panel discussion on the 3G network shutdown and the future of telematics in Australia. Before we dive into today's conversation, I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce our panel. Joining me today from Telstra is David McIntosh. David is a telematics expert with over 13 years in the industry. As Telstra's national domain lead for telematics, David currently works with major Australian fleets to roll out their telematics solutions across the country. Joining us from Core Wireless is Jeff Jenkins. Jeff has spent most of his early career in academia. He shifted to our industry now to join Core Wireless back in 2000. So for the last 23 years, he's held various positions at Core in networks and systems engineering. And today, Jeff is working with Core as a pre-sales and connectivity and hardware expert for businesses in Australia and New Zealand. And he also splits his time to supervise software engineering projects in the University of Melbourne. Representing local fleet platform providers is Jim McKinley. Jim is currently the Managing Director at Inseego Australia and New Zealand, which some of you may know by its former name as C-Track. Jim has led an impressive career in the Australian telematics industry since his move here from the UK, where he's also held leadership positions at various companies, including Sharp Electronics and IBM. And finally, to introduce Kes, he's an telematics industry veteran since 2014 and our CEO here at Teltonika Australia. Kes has been leading our office and distribution centre since we opened here in 2020. And under Kes's leadership, we've experienced what really is exponential growth in the local telematics and networking and energy industries. Welcome to our panellists, and thank you so much for joining in our conversation today.
Good day all.
Taking a quick look at today's conversation at a glance, we will aim to cover the scale of the telematics devices that are still reliant on 3G networks in Australia. We have the shutdown coming up next year. We'll discuss the state of our local markets and provide some insights into global supply chain dynamics, some hardware lead times, manufacturing challenges that we may face. We'll explore the business psychology of network shutdowns in general, looking at why businesses aren't yet prepared, considering how short a time frame we're dealing with. And finally, we'll explore the future of telematics powered by 4G and 5G technology. We'll wrap up with an open Q&A, so you can all have your questions answered. Please be encouraged as we go along to discuss things in the chat or submit via the Q&A button in your Zoom window. We take a moment for some general housekeeping. As a reminder, 3G was rolled out in Australia 20 years ago now, back in 2003, which is a bit unbelievable at this stage. 4G was introduced to Australia back in 2011, so for some perspective, that was 12 years ago now. 3G network shutdown was announced 4 years ago in 2019, and since then, shutdown dates were scheduled. Vodafone will turn off their 3G network on the 15th of December this year. Telstra will follow suit in June 30 next year, and Optus will be the last to shut down their 3G network, which is scheduled for September next year. There's no specific date for that, it's just advertised as from September next year for Optus. So we can dive right into our topics now. David, maybe to set the scene, could you give us an overview of the scale of telematics devices in Australia that are still reliant on 3G networks?
Yeah, super concerning. We've still got around, I believe, over 300,000 telematics devices that are on the 3G network. And to give you an idea, the 3G network is only 1% of all Telstra's traffic is on 3G, so majority of that is telematics. There's also a bunch of still a lot of phones, tablets, and personal emergency response pendants that are on that on the 3G network. So we've still got a long way to go yet.
300,000, that's quite a number to deal with at this stage, where realistically we're looking at 6 months. So what sort of strategies is Telstra employing to help businesses transition telematics to 4G?
Yeah, so we've got a few different ones. So since announcing in 2019, we've been communicating it to the whole market that we're shutting the network down, and why. We've also been doing a lot of strong marketing and really ramped up over the last 24 months. We're almost doing daily community sessions in some way, where we're presenting the 3G shutdown and what that means. Also, for those that are aware, we've got a large Telstra field service community that used to traditionally install phone lines and do all sorts of manner of work out in all corners of Australia. We're actually repurposing a whole stack of those guys to be able to install telematics, because one of the biggest issues we're seeing as everyone's racing to migrate out of 3G is the availability of installers. So we've already deployed a few hundred of them, and we're looking to grow that. And we're also working with a stack of businesses out there that are approaching us to help them identify and understand what the impact units are within their business, and then work with them to provide the best solution, as well as project manage that transition.
Good, that's great. You brought up a few things there that I think relates to everyone else here. So maybe we can have a look at the wider response of our market as well, outside of Telstra itself. For Jeff, the 3G network shutdown was announced all the way back in 2019, as we saw, and that's 4 years ago. Could you maybe shed some light on why we may still be dealing with such a high number of 3G connected devices in Australia?
Yes, I probably can, Letitia. I made a list of 10 reasons here, not all of them relevant to this. One of them is truck roll. Businesses who are faced with visiting a device that they haven't visited since it was first installed, and it may have run, as we've heard, for as long as 20 years. They could easily have lost track of it. It's still working, but they don't know where it is, and they don't know that it's a 3G only device at all. Mm-hmm. And so having that information for a whole fleet, which has worked perfectly well for years and years, can be quite difficult to maintain. So truck roll is one. Leapfrog's another. We sometimes think that if we have to make all these changes technology-wise, then let's go as far as we can, as quickly as we can. And so people are thinking, let's let 5G mature before we make the change. That's not feasible, I don't think, but it's one of the things that helps people to decide to procrastinate. We also have an overconfidence in our carriers' interest in IoT. So we're all carrying around 5G phones in our pockets, and so we tend to think that our carriers will maintain these networks while they go forward to new networks, and that all the facility will be there for that. And that's not quite right. And we've noticed this very much at Core in the last while, that with the gradual shutdown, because the shutdown of 3G just being closed down already, 2100, for example, that people don't always know that their 3G connection might go away almost immediately. It might have already gone away. So it's all of those uncertainties and confusions, the multiple carriers, the multiple dates, the fact that we all have a propensity to put off what we what we should be addressing yesterday, we don't address even tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. That last point is an especially good one, that people traditionally are better at adapting than they are preparing. And another aspect of what we're dealing with is this network shutdown is quite unlike any previous network shutdown in terms of scale and what's being connected. Maybe from Jim, with your experience with clients in Australia and New Zealand, what are some of the common concerns or roadblocks that your clients or even just your contacts in the industry express when considering the adoption of newer technologies?
I think the key element that's already been stated is that there's just this misbelief in that it's going to happen, but more importantly, there's almost, I wouldn't say disregard, but there is misunderstanding that there are so many installers out there that this is going to be easy to do. I mean, 300,000 units that have to be transitioned is a huge number, and it seems to be the common conversation that we're having with some of our customers, which is, well, we've still got plenty of time to do it. And we as an organization are quite fortunate that we started working with Teltonika in 2019 through 2020 to migrate a lot of our customers to 4G anyway. So the outcome that we're looking at today isn't as great as maybe some of my colleagues and competitors may have in sheer numbers, because we started a long time ago. But I think there has to be really a good understanding by everybody that this is going to be tight timescales. It's going to take some time to be able to transition across that number of units. And more importantly, the systems are so diverse now that we've got safety system with chain of responsibilities, we've got video. So there's a whole raft of things that have to happen that isn't just a simple take one thing out and put another thing in. There's a lot of back-end systems got to be changed as well. So it's quite a large migration problem, and the sooner customers can get onto it, the better, because it's the preparation, as you say, that's going to take the time. It's not necessarily the actual work itself, but it's every customer is going to have to take vehicles off the road. They're going to have to plan that because they can't just stop their industry. But if the last week has shown us anything that's going to happen when a network goes out of sync and shuts down, the chaos that created will be the same if people don't plan and make the changes now. So that's what we're beginning to see. As I say, I don't have such a big problem, but it's still a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. And what we've seen is interesting, except in the case of people who've not yet transitioned their hardware, it'll be self-inflicted. They won't have anybody to ring about it. We had a comment in the chat, which is a good one, that the 300,000 devices in the accounts for Telstra's numbers. So yeah, the number may be much larger. Are there any notable challenges, Jim, that the market's faced upgrading their systems to 4G? Has there been any kickback? For example, availability of installers, availability of hardware, has that been a challenge?
Well, again, I can only speak from a personal perspective and what some of my friends and colleagues tell me from that I've worked with in the past, that there is a lack of installers. The systems themselves, I think, for us, those systems that we've not transitioned have been because there's been a particular reason that we were using 3G, and there's a particular reason for using that piece of hardware. So therefore, we've had to make modifications to the Teltonika devices in order to fulfill those particular type customers. But I think as we transition across to 4G, there's going to be more availability of bandwidth, so therefore customers are going to want to do more. And often we've seen that our customers are coming back and saying, hey, well, if we're going to make this change, could we also do this, this, and this? Particularly around chain of responsibility. That seems to be the main thing, and getting driver information and driver diagnostics and more about the driver than the asset is probably the new way of customers looking at their purchase. So it is a chance to change, but equally that change has delay as well. Yeah. So if you want to change and you want to get this all done in time, you got to act now, because 3 months will pass, and then you're really struggling. In terms of installers, there are a lot. What Telstra are doing is amazingly good, using previous people that were in the network there in addition to what we've already got. So I think that's a great use of their technical staff, and therefore, it's certainly for people who are struggling from our side of the business, Telstra offer a great service there.
Yeah, great. We can probably carry on to that to expand a bit more of the challenges that we're facing, because there really isn't time left to go. Maybe we've heard that there's a shortage of installers, if that is the case. Do you have any insights on perhaps how long it might take to book an installer? Are we dealing with sort of difficulties there in availability? Is it taking longer to arrange hardware replacement, for example, for the average fleet?
Well, I'll give Teltonika another advert. We've not had any problem in getting stock, and I'm sure Kez can answer to that. So stock isn't the issue. I think it's really the preparation, as I said earlier. That's the major issue. There's got to be a lot of planning. If you have 100 vehicles, which is a typical size fleet in this country, if you have 100 vehicles, that's 100 vehicles you've got to organize to be at allocation at a time to have this thing done. The actual time involved in swapping things out can vary depending on what's in the vehicle, but typically it would take between 1 and 2 hours. So it's not the actual piece of work that has to be done, it's the planning and making sure the vehicle is at the right place at the right time to have the right job completed. And that's what we have to get going with. That's the major thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll carry on that advert, because as is my nature. From Cass, maybe you can comment a little bit on the state of our global supply chain when it comes to telematics hardware. Has anything changed from the trends of the past years? What are we looking at the moment?
Yeah, so it definitely has changed. In the past couple of years, Teltonika Telematics, just like many other manufacturers, struggled with supply chain and getting the right components for their hardware. At Teltonika Telematics, we noticed the increased demand for 4G, not only in Australia, but globally, and a lot of countries in Europe are also steering towards 4G. So that definitely, increases the demand for various components required to produce 4G unit. With Teltonika Telematics, we keep the buffer stock there at any given time. So I would say we are good for any increased demand for a month, 2 months, 3 months ahead. On top, we maintain a buffer stock of semi-finished products. So that's your 130s or any other popular models that we sell in this market, in any other market. And should they require some alterations, we can pick that and assemble to the product that's being requested. And Teltonika Telematics follow a strategy called dual sourcing, right? So in case of our main supplier of components, something wrong happens with them, we have at least 2 analog suppliers for the same particular part or component. So we trying to improve and be there for our partners.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course that has its limitations, though. We probably won't be 300k in stock as a buffer. The global supply chain in general, are we having those issues still? Are they persisting through to today?
No, not really. Not really. What I must mention that most of the participants in this webinar know that Teltonika is a leading telematics manufacturer in Europe, right? So this position makes us a strategic partner for a lot of component manufacturers, and we have really strong negotiation and purchasing power. So when we request for X or Y components, most of them, if not any, all of them are willing to provide us with it.
That's a great position for us to be in. It may not be the case for some other providers as well.
Yes.
I guess the only thing to round off that point would be we do have that capacity to service the market. Our lead times are great, as Jim said. He's not had any issues getting supply when working on these transition projects with Teltonika, transitioning to 4G, which they've done in advance. However, we do know, and we have had feedback internally, where people have been prompted either by us or by whoever they're working with most closely in the telematics market to transition their hardware, and then the response has been next year, not doing it until next year. So while we do have a buffer, while companies like us may have a buffer, there's still a lot of devices that realistically we've got 6 months until it's shut down, and then December and January, which are not working. So you're prudently 4 months where more than, well, we can estimate close to 500,000 devices, which is, I don't think that the stores are going to be able to. So there is a need for this. They have to put hardware to instead of doing it. The buffer doesn't dissipate.
We've got a note here from Ryan, and I think he's quite right. He's saying that a lot of these telematics devices have got to be installed in hard places to access, and that is one of the key parts of this. Whilst we might be looking at a simple transition of a little box, most times they're going to have to take the dashboard out or parts of the dashboard just to access it. And again, people tend to think, oh, well, we just get one of these and we'll just plug it in. It doesn't quite work like that. And a lot of anybody in the region is going to have even harder element to get to.
Absolutely.
While we're talking hardware, if I can butt in for a sec, just to mention that very important, relatively small, but very important subgroup of personal alarms. They tend not to be hardware that's well recognized, not manufactured by a major manufacturer. And the 3G to 4G transition raises a special problem for any device that uses voice calls. So VoLTE is an ongoing issue for us and our customers. And we're putting a lot of effort into the 3G, 4G migration precisely in the area of voice calls and VoLTE. So sometimes just putting a new device in and wiring it back up is not all that's required. And especially since these are personal alarms, that doubles their importance even if they're few in number.
Yes, it's a great point, Jeff. Thank you for providing those insights on medical devices relying on voice calls. It carries true that the shutdown affects not only the telematics industry, but all of the country's connected devices. So of course, for some, it's been an easier transition than for others. What can Australia learn from other markets in relation to this network shutdown? Last year, the US, for example, turned off their 3G network. For Jeff, are there similarities that you've noticed between business behaviour in Australia and what Core observed happening in the US?
So yes, we can talk to that a bit because Core was very involved in the equally gradual shutdown of 3G in the US. And I think it's fair to say that the sort of problems that we are looking at in Australia were mirrored very much in the US. Providers of IoT services weren't always aware that those changes were coming. they weren't necessarily aware in some cases which networks would be impacted when, because many of these devices were roaming and might have used multiple networks, which were shutting down at different times. And so that difference created quite significant problems. And it meant that roaming SIM cards, the same is true, by the way, in Australia for eSIM, that the particular dates of shutdown impact differently on different fleets, on different networks as they might be. But that was more problematic in America because the dates varied dramatically. So I think it's fair to say that the provider of the SIM card gets most of the complaints when these issues arise, and that was probably true before as well. Though we worked really hard to provide our customers with the best information, and many of our customers got caught on the faulty 3G, 4G capable modules, but then modules that were 4G capable but weren't able to do VoLTE. We got caught on that one as well. But I'm not sure that I could say we learned 3 things that we can apply here, because we're facing the same sorts of lethargy and uncertainty and lack of clarity here as we faced then.
Yeah, no, that was the same feedback that I heard. Connections that we have in the US was that some people left their transition and their businesses just went down. That was, I suppose, the one lesson for businesses here. I did have some, my voice was breaking up, and about that. I think to number joined and the strain on this. If it's difficult, sorry about that. I'll try to. David, in your view from Telstra's side, how will the 3G shutdown complete management as we move to 4G?
Yeah, so we're already getting, with a lot of the people that have already transitioned, the feedback is obviously the greater coverage they're getting. So the IoT network, which sort of 4 and 5G sort of falls within in ways, has got a much better coverage than 3G. So not only that, that's also bringing faster transfer of data, especially with video. So when we're thinking about all the importance around AI and identifying and acting on distracted driving straight away, or near enough real time, it's really important to be into that 4G plus. So that video transfer was quite slow on 3G. So that's a massive one. And also the ability to get more information a lot quicker. So that's really proving strong, especially when you think in a traditional 3G sort of deployment for telematics 5 years ago was not much more than just basic tracking. But now we're talking video, paperless forms, in-screen cabs, a lot more engine data and a lot more expandability of the product. There's so much more information that's needed to be transmitted, and now we're moving out of 3G. It's really a benefit to the market when they're actually into that 4G realm.
Yeah, there's a lot more that's able to be done with 4G. Do we have a roadmap? It's kind of logical for network shutdowns when one goes that we assume that the next will. Do we have any roadmap or into the future 4G is going to be shut down anytime soon in Australia?
So I've been with Telstra now for 2 years, and there just has not been any discussion about the shutdown of the 4G network. So there's no roadmap at this stage for that shutdown, which is great because obviously we've got to give quite a number of years in advance. So 4G is going to be around for quite some time. And the good thing is within Telematics, a lot of the 4G devices using like Cat-M1 and that sort of thing, it's essentially linked in with 5G and the IoT network. So it's a much longer play. So the longevity of the network is a lot more than what we've experienced with previous networks.
Okay, fabulous. Maybe we can look to Jeff or to Jim. From your experience, how do you see the telematics market unfolding in Australia in the next 10 years if we don't have 4G going anywhere anytime soon, but what do you see in the market?
Jeff, do you want to take that one?
You go first, Jim, and I'll follow you up.
I think with I really just repeating what David said, you know, there's so much data now required out of vehicles. So 4G is a very obvious band to move to and be able to fulfill the sort of base requirements that we all have. I mean, as we look to the future and potentially the use of 5G products and services in vehicles, I think the issue obviously for this country is we have a massive area that we've got to get 5G into before it becomes truly effective. But the instant use of 5G technologies in our industry, I think, will come from first responders, where particularly for ambulances, there'll be a requirement to get really instant information back to hospitals from the ambulance itself. And I think that is a very good use for 5G telematics devices, you know, and other first responder requirements where data has to be moved at very high speeds and virtually no latency in the process. So, you know, for general telematics, I think 4G is probably going to see us through for a while, because I don't think we need the speed of 5G to be sending a very tiny packet of data up the line. So I think 4G will be more than sufficient. Jeff?
So this is really an opportunity moment, isn't it? And we need to stress that on the call. I think that as we go from 3G to 4G, then there's a whole lot more capability there. And we've talked a little bit about the problems of making the transition, but 4G opens up the opportunity to do things within our businesses that could never be done before. So we should see this not as a limitation to our businesses, or a problem to be overcome, but an opportunity that's arisen. So for lots of us, that means thinking about what we can do with additional data and bandwidth. But it also it's also a little quaint in that just as we have much more bandwidth, so we are introducing the ability to use less data and Cat-M1 and the like, and we should realize that this is a sort of bifurcation in the sort of businesses that we are carrying through. But as always, the obvious fact is the networks are fantastic. They have an extraordinary capability for connectivity, and we can build businesses around them. So we have a hiccup today, and then we have another 20 years of fantastic business to come.
Wonderful. Is my audio still a bit choppy? I'm sorry if it is, but I'll try and switch off my video. Okay, we can work with this. All right. maybe on what you were just talking about, we had one comment from Ryan, who's starting to hear. He said that we've been hearing some confusion about some 4G data vendors being implied to also be partially supported under 5G. He'd like to have something clarified, something that bans. For example, you say Cat M1, but is there a hard line? This will. I'm not sure who. Are you able to help with that, Jeff?
Is David taking that one, I hope? David's the one to talk about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably one that's best probably visited offline, just to see which device we're referring to, because the LTE-M, if you've got that in place, like Cat M1, that is a part of the 5G family. So that gives you sort of the assurance there. And if you want some more information about that, I'm happy to provide that offline, but we could sort of go down a rabbit warren in going and talking about deep networks, which I'm not a networks engineer, I'm just telematics domain expert, but yeah, that Cat M1 is that long-term play within 5G and the IoT network. I think when we sort of say 4G, we just got to be careful. I think it's almost talking about the IoT network, which is giving you that coverage across those different devices. So the concerning thing that we are seeing in market is outside of the products that we all offer in this session, there are some overseas providers that are starting to introduce their telematics into here are really cheap. They're coming out of some pretty interesting parts of the world. Now they're coming over here and they're not actually reporting on the right bandwidth. So the Teltonika devices have already got their modules certified through Telstra, so they've got the assurance and you've got the insurance that they're actually going to be transmitting as we move through to 4G. But I do beg for anyone who is or has entertained some outside sort of hardware that you really think twice, because we've already found with one company that came to us that they bought a whole bunch of cameras off a provider, and they're marketed as 4G. But they weren't on the right bandwidths. So we are seeing that. So it's something that I would love to point out as a concern to the market, and I have in a couple of other sessions. But I'll stress that you're safe with the Teltonika devices.
Great. You've said that our devices are certified, which is great. But how can somebody check?
Yeah, so best comes directly to your Telstra rep or myself. I'm readily accessible, so I can check that's the module. So it's the modem itself as opposed to the device. So the one that's actually the modem component that we certify. So if you've got any concerns, feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to help.
Okay, that's great advice. Alrighty. We have a little bit of a fun topic here, which is more of a thought stage than anything else. Touched on it a little bit before, Jim, when you were touching on what we expect. But is there anything major? What are the highlights that we're expecting from 5G? Are there any current real-life applications for it? And if not, what is coming in the next years?
Sorry, is that a question to me?
Yes.
Okay. I think, again, 5G is in its infancy. Our parent company, Inseego, is 5G device manufacturer. That's what we do. Obviously autonomous vehicles brings in opportunity for 5G We can see some 5G technologies around large trucking, so that the information can be sent very quickly to road red lights and so on, so that it gives the truck the ability not to have to stop and prioritize the traffic, so that it doesn't delay as large trucks are moving through city centers. So that's the kind of stuff that we are certainly working on, and that we see as part of that 5G market sector. I think there will be new technologies which will gradually come out, but at the moment, as I said earlier, 4G probably will suffice for a foreseeable time.
Great. Does anybody else want to speculate on the applications of 5G in telematics moving forward? Me, Jeff, or we did.
I'm just probably going to add that Teltonika Telematics currently doesn't have any 5G devices in the pipeline or on the roadmap. So we are pretty confident that for the next 5 maybe to 10 years, 4G and Cat-M1 will be the network that telematics will work on.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. We have about 100 people registered and a few minutes now. We can address some of the questions that have been asked. So open up the Q&A window.
Can I say something about Daniel's comment? I think it might have been the first one up, Letitia.
Of course you can.
About the number of devices that we're actually talking about here. And I wanted to just, for a moment, mention the value of asking your carrier to advise you which 3G modules your fleet is using. I think it's probably almost uniquely true of Core that we have a lot of mixed fleets, that we have some 4G, some 3G only modules, some modules that just don't happen to do VoLTE and so on. But it's been tremendously valuable for our customers to be able to see a list of which specific, usually by Misden, which Misdens out in the field are communicating on using a 3G module. And we see those lists for Core. We actually get them off our radius quite a bit, and they're provided to us by all 3 carriers, and for our customers, of course. But it always intrigues me that that this is something that MNOs and MVNOs see, but which Teltonika doesn't. So it's really a task for us to all club together to help people who have the dregs of 3G only devices out there, to identify them quickly, to prioritize them, and to get the hardware replaced. And there's plenty of good work to do, and whoever your provider is, ask them for those lists if it's relevant to you.
Yes, I think that's a really great point, Jeff. Although the 3G network shutdown is primarily a hardware issue, and people do need to replace hardware, if people don't have an account already of which devices they have deployed, especially as we know we've had 20 years of 3G, so there are deployments that may have been in operation for 10 to 20 years and they just don't know. Getting in touch with your connectivity provider is the way to find out which sections of your business are still connected to 3G, so they can order that hardware and have it switched out in time. It's a great point. Moving on to another question that we have. Josh Cook has asked if anybody would like to hazard a guess of how long 4G networks will remain. We did talk to that a little bit earlier. We said that they're here for the foreseeable future, but does anybody want to take a guess?
I think 4G
I guess that kind of would be more pointed at me. So, look, it's hard to tell, but I would think it would be like, it's quite a few years yet. I think it would be sort of safe that we're talking. Well, Telstra in generally give 4 to 5 years notice, and the fact, and normally there's like obviously discussions internally that we're privy to as we prepare for that. And that obviously has a consultation period for quite a couple of years, I would expect. So we're like at a guesstimate, I mean, that's looking at least 6 years past 3G. So, but like I said, we haven't got it on a roadmap that's been discussed internally. So I think we're pretty safe with 4G for a long time yet.
Yeah, we did say that 4G was likely to be around for longer than 3G was. 3G has been around for 20 years, and of those 20 years, we've had 8 years of 4G before the 3G network shutdown was even announced. So we're only a couple years into 5G now. We can safely assume we've got 10 to 15 more years of 4G at least.
And just to add to that as well, I mean, we're still deploying 4G. And the other thing, 4G meets quite a lot of the purpose that we're seeing for some years yet, whereas 3G, at the time it was sort of really implemented, video and AI and the whole concept of, many of you might have heard the term V2X, vehicle to everything, the connected vehicle. They were like pipe dreams of like 2040 plus years ago, whereas obviously they're here and right now, and the 4G is delivering that exceptionally well as is. So that's another big difference, whereas 3G kind of was quick to sort of becoming a bit redundant.
Yeah, brilliant. Sorry once again for my audio, everyone.
So while you're scrolling, Letitia, there's another aspect to the opportunity I think deserves mention here, and that is the emergence of new types of SIM cards, particularly eSIM. So eSIM would work on a 3G network perfectly well, but it happens that eSIMs are emerging as an opportunity for our businesses at the same time that we're looking to migrate from 3G to 4G. We have to visit the devices. It's a good opportunity to upgrade the SIM card. Wouldn't have been true before, and now SIM cards lasted forever and had standard design. Now new capabilities mean new opportunities. So I think we should probably mention that while all this change is happening, SIM cards are changing capability as well. So it's another one to think about.
Yeah,
especially with Optus having its issues.
Yeah, eSIMs are already becoming quite widely used. With any carrier or wider network issue, eSIMs offer an easy way to switch connectivity in the event of a major outage. What we saw happen last week is that people just can't afford to have a solution of any kind anymore without some level of redundancy built in. We have another question that popped up here. Cutoff dates for guaranteed upgrades. So, do we have any sort of framing in mind for when is really the last time that we should be or looking at upgrading hardware? So if we're taking into account expected demand and proximity to the network, the cutoff isn't really just 30 Telstra. You're talking.
Yeah. So guess, Teltonika is quite fortunate that got a good supply of hardware, whereas in market, there are some that are really struggling. So there's that component. But as we touched on earlier, that piece around installers is the most critical, because you think once you order hardware, that still needs to be provisioned, still needs to be sent out. Installers won't be organised until that order has been put through, and then we're seeing in some areas that installers availability might not be for a couple of months. So if you're thinking of placing an order after April 24, you're kidding yourself, I would say, with any provider. I mean, we're seeing there's already the pressure on now. If we think of 3 or 4 months down the track, it's only going to be probably twice as bad. So if you haven't looked at ordering now or project managing toward and looking to order and get installs before Christmas, you are going to be in for a hard time in 2024. It's a really concerning thinking of losing visibility, also the impacts of your chain of responsibility and that sort of thing. So I would be getting onto that right now, because we're speaking across all different industry types, and each industry I speak to, they think that they're only affected. But when we say, look, okay, it's not just the transport industry, it's non-for-profit, it's councils, it's construction. So it's a very broad issue, and there's only so many installers in Australia.
Yeah. No. And also worth noting, mining, agriculture, and our biggest industries as well. Which is interesting. We have a direct question for you, David. Peter Brown wants to know how to get access to Telstra's installation resources.
Yep. So this is an emerging area for us over the last few months. So we are sort of making sure to be very careful on how we're utilising them. So it's in those areas where there is a shortage of existing installers. If we start using them too heavily now, it could have a different impact. So best thing is I've got the direct relationship with our Telstra Field Service team. Actually, the person who's in charge of that is sitting downstairs from me now. So the best way to see, firstly, is reach out to your current provider and see that they don't already have the capability, especially my colleagues here today, they've got great install capability already. So first point of call would be checking in with your current provider. And if you are nervous, then reach out to myself and I'll happily assist.
Great. I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions, so if you want to send them through. We've just got another one that's come through from Josh Cook. He's asked, do you expect to see a larger uptake of devices using the NB IoT network moving forward, especially as there are providers deploying satellites, which will leverage the network to provide satellite connectivity as well? Is there anyone particularly that wants to? He's not specified who it's directed to, so we can give it.
I can comment on this.
Yes.
So Josh, in the past couple of years, we have noticed and we sold more of M1 devices compared to 4G, right? Whereas 3 years ago, FMC 130, right? The 4G unit was the absolute best seller, and the Cat M1 devices were nowhere near in terms of sales to 4G. Now, Cat M1 devices surpass that, and I'm sure that with the broader availability of NB-IoT network, more devices with that support this network will be sold and will be implemented.
And active support for these developments from the satellite providers is, of course, to be acknowledged. And just even last week, call were in conversation with Iridium about a brand new initiative in this space. So that's definitely going to emerge, and I think most people are thinking that it will be an active topic of conversation next year. So we should open our minds to it for sure.
Okay, great. We're just about at time now. If we do get any final questions through, we'll have those answered for you separately. As we share with you the recording of today's session, we'll also send through a copy of the Q&A, including those final ones that are coming through now. I just wanted to take a moment to extend a huge thank you to our wonderful panel and those that have joined today from all corners of the industry here in Australia. We've been able to get quite a rounded perspective on what we can expect coming early next year. Thank you to Jeff, Cass, Jim, David, and thank you to everyone who's registered. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next one.